Hello, welcome back to our continuing discussion of CSS. In this discussion, I want to take a look at how the color property is set. We've set the color property according to mostly standard colors so far, but I want to show some alternatives to you and a little bit more flexibility, and indeed understanding a little bit more about how color models work in web pages and in design work in general. So here we have the styles.css for our page, and I set a background image so we could have nice contrast with the foreground colors. I just Google searched for a paper image and downloaded the thumbnail actually. Set the font size to 400 so we can see the fonts really well on our website, and then we'll look at the index.html and we'll see how these different colors were applied. So they're all mostly red, at least the first few examples. And in the first example, I just used the standard name for the color red that we've been using. And remember that Control Spacebar will pull up suggestions in Visual Studio Code, and you can see all the combinations there. These are just standard names for certain color combinations. And we can see them over here on the page. This MDN page has the complete table of them. I like this table because it shows the RGB hex value here. Here you'll need a little bit of background in how to read a hex number in order to read this, but take it on faith. This is the RGB value. That means red, green, blue, and that's a color model that corresponds with the way human beings see color. We see three colors, and all the colors that we see are mixtures of these three colors: red, green, and blue. Well, those hex values are the first two pairs are the red values, the next two pairs of numbers are the green values, and the next two pairs are the blue values. So together that shows the color mix here. So if you take and turn all color guns off, essentially 0, 0, 0 for all the RGB hex values, then the pixels are turned off in this area of the screen, and so we see the color black in that area. White, this means all color elements are firing at full intensity, and that mixture shows as white. Now this gray in here, if all color values are equal, then you get a gray shade. So if all color values are equal and tending toward 0, then it's tending toward black. If all color values are the same, but they're higher numbers and they're tending toward FFFFF, maximum number of values, maximum red, maximum green, maximum blue, you get a lighter shade of gray here. Right, so the closer it gets to FFF, the darker it gets. So if the three RGB values are equal, then you get a shade of gray. But otherwise, you can see the mixture here, and you can see now that you understand that this is the red element, this is the green element, and this is the blue element. You can start to understand how this color is put together. You can see more intense greens and how they're defined in the hex values here. This yellow is a mixture of red and green. So there we have it. So you can understand more about how these are built. They're just simply represented as hex. They're shorthands for these hex values that are expressed later. Pound sign plus hexadecimal colors, red, green, and blue. Notice that this is actually pulling up a color picker. I'm not going to pick the color here because I want to leave the color red, but that's an example of the color picker in Visual Studio Code. Nice and convenient if you just want to pick out a color. So let's take a look more at this. Example. Here's another way to express color. This is through a function, RGB function. Unfortunately, it uses decimal to express RGB values, and in decimal, the maximum intensity of the component is 255. So 0 to 255 should be expressed in these values. And if you have 255, 255, 255 here, guess what you get? You get white. Okay, because that corresponds to all color guns firing. All right. The next one, the RGBA is the real useful version of this function in this family, in my opinion, because it has the A stands for alpha channel, and the alpha channel is a little bit of information, and this a little bit of extra information, and that in this case it's interpreted as opacity. So this text here is the same red, but its opacity is turned down to 25%, so you can see through it a bit. Okay. So here's my example. Here I call out. We discussed how black is all zeros, and we see the example here, black text, and then white text here, and then gray text here. Because all color values equal, you end up with a shade of gray here. Hex values are also Useful to know about beyond web page design. It's a traditional way for color for fabrics to be called out in colors, especially team names. So I Google searched GCU hex colors, and there they are. There's GCU purple right there. So if you wanted to say write a web page for GCU, you could use GCU's official colors by calling out this hex value here. And then the other ones are that's the purple, and of course the black and white, straightforwardly interpreted. Here's ASU hex colors. I also Google searched that, and you can find those any team, pro team, college team, as long as it's a major college team that has team sports, you'll be able to find the hexadecimal colors for their uniform and be able to use those effectively in your web page designs. So there's other ways to express colors, but that's the core of the issue, and I think that's all we need to cover for now. Thank you.